to submit questions throughout his presentation. We'll be monitoring that. We may jump in kind of in the middle of it, and we'll certainly reserve plenty of time at the conclusion of Michael's presentation to take those questions. You know, I think a really important moniker here has been we're all in this together, and certainly that is true of, you know, sharing these best practices and sharing these, you know, great tips on how to be, you know, performing at our best. The role technology is playing in this unique time we're all in cannot be understated. So we want to make sure you are operating at your best, and are really excited to, you know, help get that conversation going today. Before we do that, I have a few kind of quick Casey Tech Council announcements, as we typically do at our events. If you visit the Casey Tech Council website, you'll notice we built out a special COVID-19 resource page. This has links to technology resources from our member companies that ranges from, you know, great cybersecurity product offers that have either been scaled back or free for this time, to infrastructure offers, to just Dimensional Innovations. One of our members has done an open source 3D printing model for face shields for healthcare providers. So it really ranges from a lot of really great opportunities. So we are also planning a lot of virtual events that are linked on this. Oh, and before I mention that, we also have some great education resources. I know I am one of the new fleet of work from home, stay-at-home teachers. So I've been really reliant upon some of those technology resources for education. That's been really important to us. And luckily we have great partners at Apple and code.org and other places that have offered some really great resources. Please pay that a visit. And then virtual events have been added as well. Please do keep checking on that virtual event calendar. We'll be soon listing a tech trivia virtual event that we'll be hosting. We hosted a Tech on Tap trivia event last year, and it was just an absolute blast. And we know that there's a lot of appetite for trivia in our membership. So we'll be building that out and be thinking about who you'd like to put on your team, because that opportunity will be coming soon. We also have opened up our job board for free postings for the temporary period that we're in. That does carry a cost to post jobs for non-members. So please do take advantage of that. That's something that, you know, is a really good opportunity. We know that there are still folks that are absolutely actively hiring, and we also know that there's a lot of really good talent that's maybe come on the market as well. So take advantage of that and get in front of that audience, and share your content with us. You're always welcome to submit that to us. Haley Regan, our marketing and communications manager, is always in need of that content. And then lastly, please sign up to receive our policy Tech Checkpoint and weekly emails on the website if you haven't yet. Those are great ways to keep in touch and engaged with the Tech Council. So without any further ado, I am going to introduce our awesome guest speaker and presenter today. His name is Michael Hannon. He's the CISO of LightEdge, and has some awesome tips and will guide us through this great discussion. So Michael, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Kara. And, you know, as she mentioned, please, you know, we're all kind of in our own little bubbles right now. And for some people that looks completely different. So the bubble that LightEdge is in and I'm in, I'll give you kind of a view on that, which will help frame, you know, where I'm coming from some of this conversation. So I oversee our security, compliance, and corporate IT. LightEdge, we have about 200 users or employees across 10 physical locations in 5 states. And we generally focus on industries related to, like, you know, healthcare, financial institutions, highly secure. So that's the customer base that I've been dealing with and getting to interact with and hear where they are on some of this, you know, ranging from, you know, smaller size organizations to some with thousands of users. So getting to hear where they are, assisting them with some of these same slides and pain points, as well as, you know, everyone's going through, is where we're coming from right now. So as I go through this, you know, feel free to jump in and ask questions. I want to make this as interactive as possible, because we all have a lot of good information coming from different angles. And like I said, we're stuck in our own individual bubbles, and there's a lot we can learn from each other throughout this. let me, there we go. So where we are now, these questions, we asked ourselves way back at the beginning part of March. They look completely different now, each day, each week, as our executive team and our emergency response team continue to evaluate these things, the answers look completely different. So initially, we asked ourselves a few questions, and I'm sure you guys have done these same things. Do employees have adequate connectivity at home? Luckily, we're seeing broadband usage across the country level out, which has started to help ease some of those concerns that we had. We had a large subset of our user base. We, as the Light Edge company, pay for cell phones. A lot of users had never used the hotspots on their phones, so enabling our users to use that as a backup or a primary, should they not have good connectivity. Were we able, or are we still able to give company-owned equipment at home? That's a big thing we're continuing to undertake, whether that be an iPad as a second monitor, providing second and third monitors, or webcams, making sure our user base has everything that they need to perform at a function or a level that they were used to. We're not holding back at any point there. We want them to feel comfortable working from home. We want to give them every tool set we can. And then, we get down to the security functions and the compliance function, and we don't want to lose sight on those while we're in this situation right now. So keeping up on patches and updates, that's easier said than done when everyone's in the office. Now that you have everyone working from home, that's been a key thing for us with our daily metrics, just making sure that we're keeping those things updated. We're keeping tabs on everything, and that plays into the MFA and the VPN usage as well. We were lucky that we had rolled out MFA across the majority of our applications and systems, so we were caught pretty well on this. We've been helping a lot of our customers roll this out because they were caught, flat-footed. Their user base typically came to the office. They felt pretty good about their security, but once your user base shifts to home, the multi-factor authentication and VPN usage, you're really seeing some heavy lifts done by that at this point in time. So the VPN usage as well, we've made that available to every one of our employees, but the big piece of it is ensuring that they're using it. Not everything sits behind it, so trying to educate our user base that using that at all times on a public or home Wi-Fi network is the most secure thing, and then tracking those logins and those usage to make sure that the adoption curve on those is high enough. So those are some of the things that we'll go through. And as Kara has said, there's a lot of questions right now. So we'll kind of start at the beginning of this and jump through a couple different topics here. So if anyone has questions, just let us know. This was a big one that we started out. So our team came together on March 3rd, was when we really started evaluating what was going on from a business continuity standpoint to employee working from home, and then continuing to have our facilities and our services be enabled. So is the home office as secure as we'd like it, or is the office? Absolutely not. That's just an inherent, risk of things that we've been trying to take care of. It is absolutely not as secure as the office. We've taken many strides to protect our office and our corporate environment. Those things are hard to stretch to the home environment. So we try to make as many steps and as many mitigating procedures as we can, which is where that MFA, the VPN, those different types of things come in. We've been educating our user base on Wi-Fi vulnerabilities. We've been sending them some good reading material on that, on how they can secure their home network as much as possible. The IoT, the Internet of Things, that plays into the connectivity piece. Obviously, there's a big security concerns across the industry related to this. Where we've been seeing the impact is, I've got a smart home. I've got a bunch of Nest products. I've got a bunch of Alexa devices. They're all using the bandwidth at the same time. So putting them on a separate Wi-Fi network, I can, through my Google app, I can shut all that stuff down if I'm on, say, this presentation right now, to make sure that I'm getting as much bandwidth as I need. And the next section is the big one. These next two bullets go together. So basically from day one, even before we had a confirmed case within the United States, you started seeing phishing scams. And that's no different than every emergency or global issue going on. People play to people's emotions in certain circumstances. That's no different here. So not only within Light Edge, but across the United States, we've seen a huge increase from the phishing scams. So they're playing on people's emotions here. They do a great job of spoofing, emails from our CEO, asking employees to do things. They look pretty much legitimate, other than kind of the sender. So we've seen a huge increase in those. We are really focusing on educating our user base and applying technical defenses to this area to ensure that we're limiting those emails getting to the employees, but then we're educating the employees on what to watch out for. Because now more than ever, the human error piece is more likely to happen. You've got people out of their comfort zone, working in situations that they've never had. You've got people that are stressed for different economic or social reasons. That's a ripe time for security issues to happen, especially from a social engineering email phishing perspective. So really making sure we're checking with our users, providing as much training as possible, and letting them use their best judgment on these things, but back layering that with the technical defenses as well. And then when you talk about the home office, privacy, obviously an issue. Granted, you hope that those around you are cognizant of that, but it's just when you've got neighbors and everyone around you, your world becomes much smaller and less private. So it's something to keep aware of. I'm sure, as everyone else, I had to throw this in there. I went from my normal coworkers and lunch companions to these three fun people who aren't always as aware of my meeting or call situation. So it's been a lot of fun so far. It's definitely some things to deal with. Those punches just continue to keep rolling. So this has kind of been an area that I've really kind of taken focus on. There's a lot of good reading material out, and I was just on a call prior to this where we're evaluating employee productivity. And we've seen a couple really interesting things occurring within our user base. So we have a project manager or PMO office within our organization. And over the last 2 to 3 weeks, we've seen a huge increase in productivity related to certain projects. And so it's interesting to look at the dynamics of how this works, that employees' focus right now is on tactical work. So we're seeing a lot more tickets closed. We're seeing a lot more approved projects, a lot more progress pushed towards those. So employees right now, when they're in this situation, are focusing on those tactile work products, which is great for a week or two or a month. It's not necessarily sustainable. When you don't allow your user base to focus on the big picture or the problems, that's where we're going to start seeing issues down the line. So we're really trying to evaluate how we keep that employee productivity up. Motivation goes down when we're not giving employees an option of where they're working, which we're obviously in a situation right now. So we're trying to allow employees time to experiment, solve problems, focus on those big ticket items, giving them time each day and each week to focus on that, because we're seeing enough traction on these projects, the tickets, that tactile work. We want them to be able to spend time collaboratively thinking big picture, so that we don't lose any step or stride, a month or two down the line. So that's a big thing we're seeing right now. And a few of these bullets on how we can help keep productivity up. We spent a lot of time, our help desk and even myself, helping employees with slow internet, the background noise, those types of things. I don't know how many requests we've had from employees saying, their network's slow, and then helping them implement like a mesh networking solution at home, trying to help our user base with non-common problems and things that we wouldn't have done historically. The stuff outside of work, that's for them to take care of. But, setting up webcams, all that different stuff, we're here as an extension to help our user base, which in turn is going to support our customers and make sure that we're not missing a beat from everything we're trying to do. There's a few unique ways to kind of mitigate and watch the burnout feature as well. We're really focusing on the regular check-ins, those sanity checks. So we have daily stand-up calls within the organizations for one-on-ones, group meetings to keep those social functions up, making those conversations more personal, helping to build those daily schedules. Having a routine to start and end your workday is really important. So there's no bleed over, and it feels like that every day is a work setting at this point. I mean, that's a really important thing. LightEdge also has started dabbling. We are using an AI vendor, which has helped with the burnout. which produces a couple surveys a week, has some different information feeds to help give a gauge to different management or managers on the burnout of their employees and their groups, which has been really important to us. So we can catch that hopefully a little bit earlier on and change and tailor the procedures we're doing to individual employees. Don't know if there's any questions. I flew through those first couple slides there. No, we'll keep going. Okay. The next section here is a big one that we've been focused on as well. I mean, in a highly regulated, compliant industry, keeping our business and our data safe is the most important thing. That reputation risk for letting our guard down right now just can't happen. So, you know, what we continue to tell our employees, which relates back to that human error piece, is telling them to stay diligent, stay in your routines, stay within those controls that you've normally been operating in, and trust your common senses. If something doesn't look right, feel right, whatever it is, raise your hand, raise the flag up to have another set of eyes on things so that we can continue offering the same level of experience that we've been known to have. The big one that we're constantly pushing, always use your VPN while working from home. Get a lot of questions on this. So, you know, I'm not going to anything that's behind the VPN or needs that to access it. You still should be running every session from the minute you start your day to when you're finally logging off should be done within a VPN session there. It's just the most secure way for us to operate when we don't have a good grasp on what the environment that they're working in looks like. This also plays back to the email phishing, the social engineering piece. Continue to exercise caution from everything. Just provide an additional level of scrutiny to everything you're opening. Look at the sender's domain to verify whether it's one you know or looks legitimate. We see a lot of these that have major typos in them, so that's a huge red flag. And then just not opening attachments. So we try and put technical defenses in to catch these. There are obviously ones that come through, fly through the gaps, and we tell our user base, when in doubt, alert the security team. We've got enough tools that we can run on these to validate whether or not they're legitimate emails and send back to them. So we just want to make sure that those things are all tools that they have available to them to make sure that they're safely and securely taking care of the business and the data. As everyone has seen in the news right now, there are risks to video conferencing. These are the same procedures that we should be doing all the time, the same level of scrutiny. But, you know, as an entity, we use Skype and Teams for meetings. This is on Zoom. We've got WebEx and all these other ones. So depending on whether or not you're working just within your organization and on the same video conferencing subset, or if you're working outside of your organization and bouncing back and forth like I am to all these different tools, there's some steps to just take to make sure you're secure on these things. So as you're joining a meeting for the first time, just make sure you're downloading the app from a reputable source, going directly to the Zoom website. If you're on mobile device, just make sure you go to the App Store on whatever device you're using to make sure you're getting it from a legitimate source. Zoom has come out and made sure that they've produced their security white paper on the settings. Ensure if you're joining a meeting that it's password protected so that you can't have anybody Zoom bombing or jumping into your meetings, sharing content, making sure all those different best practices are locked down within whatever application you're using. And you just have to watch out. I've seen way too many cases out there where someone clicked on a link, opened an attachment, shared some information in the chat feature. Again, it's just using best practice to protect yourself and the organization as you use these things. We're doing 99% of our business through video conference right now. It opens up a huge avenue of risk and vulnerabilities if we don't take the necessary steps to protect ourselves. So just following a few best practices upon initial setup and each time you're jumping on a new platform is incredibly important.
Hey, Michael, can I jump in with a question?
Absolutely.
Great. From one of our attendees, and this kind of goes along with what you were just chatting about. The question is, can you encrypt too much? Can it then reduce productivity or data flow?
That's a fantastic question. Yes, you absolutely can. And so with a lot of things that we're talking about, there's a risk to reward piece here, which we're taking on a lot of different decisions of, is the risk of losing information greater or less than the cost of it, the time lost on it, the productivity piece. We definitely are weighing that internally and with our customers. That encryption piece can bog down systems. It can create, havoc on users. So there's definitely a piece of that where you need to evaluate, do we encrypt every single piece of information, or through our data classification projects, have we said this subset of items needs to be encrypted, at what level, and how is that being transmitted? How is it being stored? Those different types of things, because there are absolutely pros and cons when you look at encryption strategies and how they are protecting you or hampering business function or cost if you go to encrypt everything. So no, that's a fantastic question. Were there any other ones sitting out there?
We've got a couple I'm going to save for the end, but
okay.
for now, that's what we've got.
Okay, that sounds good. So the big thing I wanted to dive into here, which everyone's had a little bit of a taste of this, whether or not you had a fully vetted business continuity plan, or you had to throw something together, or you're still working with nothing, wanted to talk about this a little. So just to give you kind of an understanding from a LightEdge perspective, how quickly things moved for us. So on March 3rd was when we stood up a quick meeting to review our business continuity plan, specifically to pandemic responses. So we had to dust off the old pandemic response or plan that we had. We had to go over that with a fine-tooth comb with each functional operational area that we had, and really create something, because our business continuity plan talked about, should an office go down, or we have something happen to a specific location, those types of things. It really wasn't designed for a comprehensive, all locations could potentially be unreachable from a physical perspective. I mean, that's a big ask that a lot of people don't. When you got 10 locations, you still expect one or two to be reachable, and you have interconnectivity between those, cross functionality between them. So that was a big piece for us on March 3rd, was reviewing that and creating those functional areas, a specific pandemic response for how their teams can function, how they can go through working remotely. Are there still some functions of receiving mail, printing checks? We're in the data center business, so still having, some critical facility staff on hand and at location is absolutely critical for us providing the services that we're going to need to be doing. So we took a really deep dive in how we could ensure those things were going to continue to happen. By March 9th is when we had enacted our business continuity plan. By March 13th, all employees will work from home. So, I'm sure those timelines look relatively similar to where you guys are at. So, now's not the time, if you didn't necessarily have a business continuity plan or a strong disaster recovery plan, to work on those things. Obviously have to settle down before we can go back through and create these. But here's the common steps and things that we'd like to look for. So the business impact analysis of just ensuring what's important, how long can it be down for. You're evaluating the cost of interruptions and where those interruptions can be. You're identifying essential services and functions. You're pinpointing the skill and staff requirements. You want to know where those things sit, how you can contact them, how you can bring them online, and what time frame you can bring them online. Flagging potential issues. We definitely did that on March 3rd. We walked through what we were seeing other countries going through, the best and worst case scenarios of what we thought the United States was going to go through, and applying those to the plan we already had, and then quickly enacting changes. Ordering new equipment. We put half of our facility staff on 14-day rotations off-site immediately on March 3rd. We wanted those people, a clean staff, should something happen at each location that could flip in. We turned half of our facility at each location into a clean area that no one was going in. So should we have someone come down sick, we could flip over to the other side of the building with completely separate infrastructure, entrances, all those different things. So there was no cross-contamination. You all are going through this as well. It's just a lot of different things to think through And some people are extraordinarily detailed in thinking of different scenarios and how to plan for them and those types of stuff. And we were lucky that we had a pretty good base to build off of. But there's a lot of our customers that we've been building these plans from the ground up, helping them turn their workforce from 15% working remote to 99% within a week or two. And you guys are all going through that right now. But you want to identify those recovery steps. You want to communicate and train employees. That's the big piece. You don't want to just write this once, set it on a shelf. No one knows where it is except for the person that's sending it to the auditors or a few customers who are asking. So you want to communicate and train employees on a regular basis on this. Think through different scenarios and test those on an annual basis or more frequently, depending on if regulation is pushing you to do that. And review your preparedness checklist on a regular basis. I mean, that's a really important thing. The threat landscape changes all the time. You want to make sure you're adapting and that you've thought of things. A couple of years ago, probably not many people within our industry would have foreseen something like this coming down. So there's just a lot of steps to be taken. As we continue to talk to organizations, it's amazing how the compliance officer, the security officer is now getting a lot of good support to help implement these things after the fact. So, hopefully we're seeing a lot of organizations stay healthy and successful throughout this, and that they come out more prepared after the fact. So one of the next areas we kind of wanted to talk on a little bit, we've had a lot of customers asking us, and the biggest thing driving this right now is cost containment. The liquidity piece right now of, having cash on hand, saving money wherever you can is incredibly important across all industries right now. So specific to the IT function, we're getting a lot of questions on how they can save. And so that really comes into play when you start talking about the cloud, whether or not they should make a move to a public cloud, whether or not they should bring things back. The cost containment piece, everyone's just trying to save money. So putting projects on hold, trying to determine where that spend is and if it can be reduced while still providing a secure and good environment for their customers. So to the question, should we be putting more into the cloud? I mean, that's a hybrid cloud solution is what we're seeing pretty much everyone going to. Stuff that's newly built obviously could live in the cloud, those types of things. Or fit there. Those legacy applications that may not, run well out there. We're seeing all of our organizations throw, the OneDrive, the document repositories, the email, those stuff can easily go reside there. Some of those legacy apps that were built 5 to 10 or longer years ago, we're definitely seeing those reside in a more traditional private or on-prem. That cost containment piece for them, that initial investment into getting things move somewhere else, we're definitely not seeing that done right now. So ensuring cost containment, a lot of people that right now is just not making changes. Cost containment right now is staying with what you've got for the most part, evaluating whether or not certain things can be turned down if they're not necessarily critical, or if you had a project that was running on things, maybe turning that down for a little bit, backing off of it. To the cyber threats, and is the cloud secure? Absolutely. With anything, there's a different subset of controls and best practices that should be applied there. But it's no less secure. It may take, a different, employee or mindset or technical ability on your own staff to ensure that it's secure and monitor that. But it's no less secure. So that's a lot of questions we've been getting right now. As our customers and others in the industry are coming around cost containment and how the cloud plays into that. And it's a different story for every company that we're seeing at this point in time. I don't know if there's any other questions. I'm down to just how LightEdge can help here, which is just a quick slide. So we offer to our customers no charge consulting on disaster recovery, cloud compliant, co-location, business continuity planning we're doing for a lot of our customers. But I just wanted to throw that out there for people. If you have questions, need any answer, or what we're seeing from similar industries to you all, or just what we're seeing from our customer base or ourselves, we're just trying to share that with everybody. There's some really good information out there. We've been honing in on some Gartner articles that are really helping our customers that we're passing along. There's a couple that was specifically on the motivation to employ, some Harvard Business Review articles that we've been leveraging, which mirror the things that we're seeing. So there's a lot of good data out there. There's not necessarily many hours in the day to go out there and get that. So as much as we can filter some of those resources to our customers and those around us, as we're really trying to put ourselves right now. So with that, hopefully we've got some questions, comments. If there's any areas I didn't necessarily dig into, feel free to bring those up, and I can either chime in on them, or we can have others on the call jump in as well.
Great, thanks, Michael. Yeah, we are. I think I've got one question queued up here, but others who may want to offer a question, or if you have your own contribution on what you've seen working for your team, please feel free to contribute. I think it's a helpful discussion. We had a question from Kristen with Goodwill of Western Missouri and Eastern Kansas, Casey Tech Council member. Does a lot of excellent workforce training and preparedness as part of their many services they offer the community. Curious, from what you've seen, Michael, and kind of maybe prognosticating a little bit from what will happen, is there a need for more cybersecurity workforce right now? And any need for partners like Goodwill to contribute to cybersecurity training and help ramp up support in that area? What do you think? I mean, is this changing the way we're going to, train and build cybersecurity teams? And this may be a little bit of a prediction on your end, but what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, we're definitely going to see some different things. So there's a couple things that come to mind. We're really trying to push the training piece right now. So we've opened up a lot of our internal trainings. We've tried to put, all the different training vendors out there have kind of opened things up. So we're really allowing our staff to find time specific to security as well. Give them time to hone some of their skills. I mean, we had to cancel the majority of the conferences where they get that continuing education piece. So we're making sure through LinkedIn Learning or whatever the other apps are that training is available to them. We've got a lot of our customers, and even within the company that owns us, security is running really lean right now. Some of the companies have had to furlough large amounts of their employees, so they're running with maybe just the CIO or CTO who's running the entire IT department and security function. So we're definitely seeing a unique time for certain entities related to security. But coming out of this, we're definitely going to see some different things. I mean, we've talked about it as an organization. I mean, it's not going to be the new norm, but we're definitely going to see far more of our user base working from home, which we would have not assumed, because the productivity, the ease of that, the additional hours we're seeing has been fantastic so far. But on the flip side of that, we're going to shift security more towards the endpoint, a zero trust kind of environment, to ensure that those things are secure. We always had people come into the office to work in a secure environment. Now we're going to be shifting and be less trustful of those outside networks and kind of change our security landscape. So that's a great question. And we definitely think, the future state of this is going to look very different than it does now.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk a lot about building a fine-tuned cybersecurity front and kind of what components make up those elements. What are you seeing, as we're kind of increasing our dependence on, those services? Are you seeing any changes in the types of providers that may emerge from this, that, the types of vendors that may need to be part of that plan, that maybe weren't getting as much attention, but now that you do have this big remote out workforce, things that technology leaders should be paying attention to, adding to that fine-tuned front?
Absolutely, and that kind of brings up a good question. So specific to some of the traditional security features, like that Gartner article that I forwarded, and I hope we can send that out to everyone that's on the call, because it does a great job of looking at the different avenues for each of the security functions, and talking about the historical vendors in these areas and some of the new people who have gained traction because of what's going on right now. So you're going to definitely see a shift in some of the landscape with some new people related to security and technology. they may be purchased at the end of the line for this, but that landscape's going to look completely different. And you've got some new players in the game. You've got some new scrutiny on some of these companies as well related to their security and privacy practices, which are definitely going to be coming into play. I mean, you see that with Zoom as well. So ensuring that you're working with a vendor who has taken that stuff serious, taken the necessary steps to protect as we start to leverage these additional technologies. It's no different than having, a robust vendor management process. We're pushing more outside of our walls now. Our employee base may be out of our walls now. We're using applications that are out of them, ensuring that you're doing a good due diligence on the initial vendor review, and then continuing to evaluate them on an annual or more frequent basis to ensure they're following best practices.
Yeah, that's great advice. It sounds like the kind of core competencies remain. It's just the landscape may look a little bit different. Another great question from one of our attendees: how could malware or ransomware, and this kind of is queuing back to one of your earlier slides about protecting that at-home network. How do you see malware or ransomware moving from a home IoT device to a work network? What are the cases where that could happen? Have you seen that happen?
That's a great question. And so we're seeing a lot of different deployment of those now because our workforce has moved. So a lot of the risk we're seeing internally and the daily, threat intelligence that we're getting is a lot of those focused on more the IoT devices and how they can propagate, starting at home, working through the devices and onto corporate networks potentially. So you're seeing a larger target on those, which historically wasn't necessarily there. The IoT specificity for where they were going was ones usually within like a medical or healthcare field or manufacturing, those type. But now you have them going after the home user for a very different reason than they historically have. So we're definitely seeing a shift on those. And I think that's going to be the new normal, is that all those endpoints are shifting to the home now. You're going to see far more attacks geared towards that than maybe coming directly at the corporate area, because they know those employee bases are out of the office at this point.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's interesting. Well, I think we have met most of the questions that I've received from our attendees. I'll give you one last quick call for any additional questions that we can help answer. All right. Well, Michael, thank you for this great information. I think, it's something that is on all of our minds as we build this out. And, and thank you to all of you on the call as well. I think, it's been very clear the important role not only the tech industry and our tech teams from our companies have played, but also those that handle that security element. I mean, it is a rapidly changing landscape that you are really handling and responding to in real time, and it's a real test of preparedness and strategy. And it's been really, really interesting and encouraging to see the response from Kansas City's tech community here. I just want to thank Michael for his time. Michael, any parting words on your end, and then we will wrap it up and send people back to their next Zoom call.
No, it's a lot of the same. Take care of your employees and stay in constant contact with them. Continue to provide them some thoughtful material that they can read through, some stuff to kind of get them out of that tactical work function and get them thinking big picture, things down the line. As we hope to move out of this, thinking less day to day and more, a week or two or a month down the line is the shift that we need to make sure we're getting to. So hopefully everyone can start to focus on that and get back to a little bit of the normal that we were used to.
Yes, here's to that, the sentiment. We share it. For those of you who are listening in and would like to, share your best practices as well, you are welcome to visit the KC Tech Council website. We are building that list of technology resources. We also have a really great LinkedIn group that we host that is the KC Tech Council group that we monitor and contribute to those discussions as well. Again, the more we can share with one another to make our responses stronger, I think the better as an industry and community we will be. If anyone has any follow-up questions for Michael, we'll make sure to share his contact information with those who registered for the webinar. This will also be posted on our website and social channels, and we'll share the recording of this with you via email after it's available once we conclude. So thank you for your time today. Thank you, Michael, for your great insight. And please stay tuned for future webinars that we'll be hosting over the coming weeks. Thank you, guys. Stay safe.